Squadron leaders reporting.
Admiral, this is
Blue leader standing by.
This is Gold leader standing by.
This is Red Leader.
Standing by.
Welcome to the Star Wars Post Livecast, the official livecast show of the StarWarsPost.com, your Star Wars home for news, reviews, features, and more. The StarWarsPost.com, the galaxy at your fingertips. And here is your host of the Star Wars Post Livecast, Max Pallas.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Star Wars Post Livecast. It's October 11th, 2018, and this is episode 19, the Star Wars Episode 9 and the Mandalorian set pictures. I'm your host, Max Pallas, and tonight we'll discuss some amazing pictures from the sets of both Star Wars Episode 9 and the new live-action series, Star Wars The Mandalorian. We also give our take on the newest Star Wars animation series, Star Wars Resistance. We have a ton to get through tonight, so with that, let's go ahead and meet this week's panel. She's a writer, contributor to the StarWarsPost.com, the amazing Liz Larson, who isn't here. I kid. Liz is still working on her Skype, so she might show up here a little bit later. He's a senior content creator for BlabberTheHut.com, and joining us from the lovely Emerald Isle of Ireland, Gary O'Toole. Hey, Gary, it's good to see you. She is the creator and host of the funny and entertaining Glitter Geek TV channel on YouTube, huge Star Wars fan, and all-around pal on Star Wars Twitter, the lovely GlitterGirlAli. Hi, Ali. It's nice to see you. And, of course, he's the owner and editor-in-chief of MakingStarWars.net and co-host of the award-winning podcast, Now This Is Podcasting, our favorite war correspondent, Jason Ward. Chief Scooper.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, bud. I'm so glad to have you on. After, the last 19 episodes, it's been great to, get you guys on. Liz, guys, will hopefully pop on if she can. If not, Liz, we'll miss you. We'll hope she, because I like when she comes in ninja style, which would be really great. So guys, we got a lot to get through this week. Big news. Of course, Jason's here to help us go through all the scoops that he had this week. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get some housekeeping out of the way. The Star Wars Post Livecast is also now a podcast on iTunes. So please take the time and subscribe and rate and review the podcast. It means a lot for us in the show. And you could also find us, you can also find the podcast now on venues like Spotify, TuneIn, Google Play, and Stitcher. So that's new for us this week. Hopefully that'll get out and everyone can go and catch it. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel on YouTube and hit the alarm bell icon to get alerts when a new episode airs. Also, we want to hear from you, so if you have a question or comment, please send it to livecast@starwarspost.com, and we just might answer it on the show. Okay, guys, we have a lot to get through tonight, so I want to get cracking. First, of course, the big news this week was information on both productions, both Star Wars Episode 9, and The Mandalorian. Jason, your end, doing a bunch, and then, of course, this out of the blue from this really great guy on Reddit who just happened to come across this set for Star Wars Episode 9 over in Jordan. Now, you originally broke the story, Jason, that they may be filming back in Jordan. I think you had that piece 2 months ago. They said the filming might go there, and it's just really great that this guy out in the desert, who goes wandering out in the desert, just happens to come across a really gorgeous set. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that real quick here in a sec. So a user on the Reddit has posted some amazing pictures on what looks to be a remote location film set for Star Wars Episode 9. The user Yena Magana also posted a detailed account of what he saw to match the wonderful visuals. Wadi Rum is a large desert nature preserve in southern Jordan. And in here, we'll also talk about a brief overview of what he saw. He saw several rigs that were supposed to be some sort of land speeders. One looked a lot like Ray's orange creamsicle speeder. That whizzed by rather quickly, so he didn't actually get a good photo of that. He's pretty sure he saw Daisy Ridley or another actress on the set. It could possibly be a stunt double, of course, on a guided camel tour, and also drove by and of course the stand-up cardboard outfits that look like Nemodians. At least that's what he described it as. I think it's sort of generic as placeholders that they had for the set. What did you guys think when you saw the pictures come across? Jason, you can start out since you're the one that works the Mandalorian set. So what did you think when you saw these first epics?
Yeah, I just thought they were just general Star Wars crowd kind of stuff. I didn't really take it to be too specific, or that there was anything to really glean from it. Yeah. Maybe the colors could be something that maybe they care about, being able to sort of see what that all looks like out there. So maybe there is something to that. But the Nemodian thing, I was like, yeah, I see what you mean, but I didn't read too much into it.
Yeah, and I have some of the pictures up that are coming up now that, first of all, I think this is the exact same spot, or close to this spot where they filmed for Rogue One as well. So it's got this really lovely, the sets, wherever it is, it's just gorgeous. I'm a sucker for desert shots, going back to Lawrence of Arabia. And for me seeing this, this really hit home for me, I think just as much as the Ireland pics did for Episode 8. right? When those first started coming through, where they were going to be filming in Skellig Michael, or at least in Ireland, what was going to look like Skellig Michael. And I just fell in love with these pictures. And I actually reached out to the guy on Reddit and actually kind of conversed with him a little bit, maybe to see if he was going back, if he was going to take any more pictures. I think they're fantastic. What did you think about them, Ali? Did you like the pictures when you saw them?
I like them, but I am not big on set photos. I don't know why. Yeah, I'm just not. I don't know what it is. I get more out of reading content, and I mean, they're pretty, but I'm not looking at them thinking, oh, what does this mean? That kind of thing. But I'm obviously excited for episode 9 because I think it's supposed to wrap everything up with a nice little bow. So I'm excited that they're.
Gary, what did you think when you saw them?
I was more interested in reading the comments of what people had posted. We had everything from Jeddah was mentioned to the sort of red line and looking more and more like a recreation of Cree. But I don't think we can read too much into it. I mean, the descriptions weren't exactly overly vivid, so I think everything can be taken with a pinch of salt, and everybody is going to put their own twist on it and use their imagination to come up with something that will work for them.
Well, he did talk about a lot. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
The interesting thing about that in Jordan to me is that they were going to film all of the Jakku stuff in Jordan originally, and then Abu Dhabi came through with a better break in some way, tax break or whatever it happened to be. And so all of the concept art, like if you go into the art of Force Awakens and looking at all of that stuff for Jakku, all of like that Photoshop kind of based concept art they like did, all of that is from Jordan. All of it's places just like that, like those mountain ranges just like that. And so I'm kind of like a part of me goes, obviously it could be Jeddah because they filmed Jeddah there. Sure. But it being Abrams and kind of the whole thing, yeah, well, I'm not going with someplace new because I think that derivative of Tatooine thing, like they can't do that anymore. If they do it anymore, I'm going to crack up. It's just going to be hilarious because it's like how many places are just like Tatooine but not Tatooine.
but not Tatooine.
And so but with this being Rey's story and things like that, when you get down to it for this trilogy, like I think it's Jakku personally. Just a guess though.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I lean back. I mean, first of all, my opinion of the shots, again, I love the set photos. I love scenic places. But for me, the first things I thought about were, okay, like, what is the story here? And Tatooine came to mind because is J.J. Abrams the top that's going to want to finish the saga where it started, right? With A New Hope. Is that kind of his angle? Or is he going to kind of lean in and do, or are we going to go back to Jeddah? But Jeddah's kind of had its moment already in Rogue One, even though we saw it again in the comics. I mean, it's war-torn and we're out in the desert. There's maybe some Bedouin people, but that sort of doesn't make sense. And then, I really think that it could be Tatooine, just maybe a different part of Tatooine we haven't seen before, right?
Well, doesn't Jeddah make the most sense, though? Because if Rey is trying to put the Jedi Order back together and start it anew, and she has these Jedi texts that are like old and kind of like
or looking
not a good read. Yeah, Luke was doing this too, right? That's why Luke goes there, correct?
Yeah, so the thing is like and that was the kind of thing that stuck out for me. It's just because Jeddah is technically still around. So if there anybody that can help her understand the Force, or maybe she's trying to, remember there is still the Church of the Force, even though they sort of got wiped out by the First Order in The Force Awakens, they might necessarily be totally gone. So, and then of course this could be Jakku again, right? Maybe there are remnants left over from Lor San Tekka's group or whatever else. And then of course there's the Aftermath series where a lot happens at Jakku, and that's the major pivot point in how the First Order. Well, how the Empire basically escapes out to the outer regions and how they find their way back because of that computer. So, for me, I think you're right. How many times can you play the Tatooine card and not be Tatooine? And I think that's probably the thing. And for me, it sounds like him. Go back to where it all started to end it somehow, right? But then again, what the heck else is, what makes Tatooine great is it's a nowhere backwater. It is no place special. That's what makes it, romantic for me. You know what I mean? But Jakku had this super mystery about it, right? I mean, there's still a ton of mystery about it. We just haven't delved into it yet. Is he going to go back to that? I mean, Jakku is his baby, right? That's his planet that JJ made up. So, I think it's possible. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. I'm sure we're going to get some things soon about it. I'm just curious to see more pictures from the set. I'm just surprised I mean, it is all the way out there, but it was really great to get it during this week. It was a surprise. It was like, wow. And then to top it off, all the reporting we've been following from you, Jason, which has just been day after day after day for the last 2 weeks of you living at the set. So this was kind of nice to kind of break away and go, wow, like all this stuff is really, really hitting at once. So, with that, I think we can pass on to this one. There really isn't, like, I think Ali put it best. It's just a picture. There's not really much you can glean from it, except maybe some, small topic and conversation. Okay, guys, so we're going to jump into the Bill meat of this, which is Jason's stuff, which has been just, man, I'm surprised. You've been living in the bushes, wherever you're doing, which has always been a joke of mine. But the greatest thing is when Jason sent me the first text picture of where he was. I think it was a Saturday night. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. And I just couldn't help laugh because I'm like, I always had a running joke with him that Jason hides in like the bushes, like Pinewood Studios, getting his pic, shot, whatever. And then sure, he sends me a picture with him standing in front of a bush at this new set for The Mandalorian, which cracked me up. And I joked with him saying, you should do a podcast from there. And then you actually did. So tell us what that experience was like. I guess as basic as you can without revealing anything. How was it like finding this set and just the excitement of like being in your backyard essentially and, to go do this stuff and scoop? How was that like for you, Jason, the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, that was insane. Like when I got word that it was actually going to be there and it was what we thought it was, I couldn't believe it. And then when I showed up there, like we did a podcast from there. and on the podcast, I'm like, I have this recurring dream. I have two recurring dreams, and one is that back in like the first Spider-Man movie, they filmed it near my house in an airplane hangar or something. Like they did like the wrestling scene there. I had this dream that they were filming Star Wars there like 4 or 5 times since like 2015. And in my dream, I'm like, wow. And then like Obama's going in there. I'm like, this is weird. This is crazy. Why is this happening? I'm like, I can't wait to update the site, right? And then my other dream is that I go to the 99-cent store and it's full of Return of the Jedi vintage action figures. I don't have my wallet on me. And I'm like, dude, these are only $1 if anybody notices. And then
I need to borrow $1.
So anyways, yeah, but it's like, so when I'm there, like I like literally felt like I was in either of those dreams. I'm like, I'm going to wake up. This isn't like really there. This can't be happening. Like they're filming Star Wars, like, 20 minutes from my house. How could that be a thing? They always filmed it like in Tunisia or something. And so it was kind of weird. It was kind of like looking at Disneyland and not being able to go in it in a way. But it was really, really rad. And I don't mean it like as a dig or anything, but like I know people who are in like film reporting and stuff, and like their goal is to visit a Star Wars set. Like that's like the end game for some of my friends. And it's like, I'm visiting a Star Wars set, and I didn't have to be nice to anybody but myself. So it's kind of gratifying in a weird, pathetic way.
Yeah, because I lived through you the last couple of weeks because
what?
No, seriously, because we've been running our sites. I've been running mine for 4. You've been running yours for like 6, and it's always been a long distance sort of journalism job for us. It's the late nights, and especially because most of the production's overseas. So like with you, especially early on, I remember you talking about years ago, even before I was on the podcast, how it was the 3 o'clock in the morning calls, the 4 o'clock in the morning calls with sources and vetting things out and mixing things with people, and it's always someplace else and trying to figure it all out and piece things together. And even though people are sending pictures or people are sending materials or whatever happens, to actually be there in person on this set has got to be a complete, like, it's here. Like, it's right in front of my face, and I don't have to actually go anywhere. I don't have to rely on anybody else. Like, what I see is actually what's happening. And I'm like, that must be such a surreal and great thing for you as a, because it is journalism. I don't care what anybody says. This isn't paparazzi stuff. This is real. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm trying to piece together. Here's the information as best I convey it, as honestly as I can convey it. And I know things are fast moving for you because I remember you had talked about initial rumors that were coming from the set, like with Pedro Pascal. But I love how you were directly honest with all your readership to basically say, hey guys, this is moving, shifting ground. Like, I really don't know this one because it's not really your bag. But everything else lined up, including the directors and, the issues and everything. And I happened to catch your podcast when you were on over with Peter Serretta at Slash Film, and it was like the night before, and you're laying this all out for Peter, which was cracking me up because the next day, I mean, it's all true. It's like a bullet point. And it's just fantastic. I'm so happy for you in making Star Wars, because even though you've done a big part of getting a lot of us the scoops for the last 3-4 years, it is so nice to see you on set getting your own stuff. You know what I mean? And you can tell you're excited about it in your writing. And I think that's what I enjoy about it the most, is because I see you having a lot of fun with it. And, you know, I'm sure you guys have been following as well. Gary and Ali, you guys have been following his scoops. Well, how have you guys been like the last couple of weeks seeing all the stuff coming in from The Mandalorian? Gary,
okay.
Ali, you can go first.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, actually, you know, before I said I'm not really into set pictures, I've enjoyed the Mandalorian ones because there's a little bit more to glean from them. But I didn't think I was going to be excited for this TV show. I'm not really into the cartoon shows too much that Lucasfilm has put out. But, you know, I wanted KOTOR, really, in the long run. I wanted Knights of the Old Republic as this Disney streaming service show. And so I had heard all the Mandalorian, like, oh, great, okay, I'm going to watch it, obviously, but I doubt if I'll like it. And the pictures, and then the picture that they released that's probably, you know, some kind of stock photo of the Mandalorian armor, was like, oh.
You know, that picture, Lucasfilm really knows how. I mean, and when they took all these pictures of this initial guy, I know they had, it's almost like I think about the Sports Illustrated cover. They have all these great pictures of samples of which one's going to be the winner. And you know this one's stuck out on the table. Like everyone went, yeah, that's the photo we're using. It's just the perfect angle, everything. And it totally, I mean, of course, we talked about this in last week's show, how it completely sparked interest in the show like nothing else. It's amazing what one photo can do. But what's really great about this is Jason's scoops that are coming, literally either it was the causality of them sending this thing out, which to me cracked me up even more, right? Because at some point, if you don't have an official marketing release, you have to catch up to what the scoopers are doing. So it was a really great marriage of the two, and it was really kudos to Lucasfilm for going a step further and releasing episodes and directors and those sort of things too that night, along with the picture, which was nice. I mean, it was nice for them to do that. What did you think when you saw the picture? Because I didn't get your opinion on it, Gary, when you saw it for the first The Mandalorian.
It just excites me in the sense that it's going to be a somewhat of uncharted territory in terms of a spectacle, I suppose, a sort of a, with the streaming services, obviously something that they're really delving into now. And if you look at the team behind it, I mean, Jon Favreau, right away, Disney's golden boy as such. Everything he touches seems to turn to gold. But I mean, if you talk about the directing talent, I mean, Taika Waititi going to work on an animated show. I know in particular people associate Taika with, you know, being very wacky, extremely lighthearted. But if you see interviews with him, and we were lucky enough to see some interviews with him here in Ireland when Ragnarok was here, I'd say he can produce some seriously dark stuff, which I think we're a little bit unsure of the tonality of what The Mandalorian is going to be like. I'm hoping it's somewhat of a gunslinger / sort of Western vibe to it. That's what I'm hoping for. And I think that also from a cosplay point of view, I think you're going to see a lot more Mandalorians popping up around the place, but it will broaden people's horizons in that the minute you hear Mandalorian, you don't automatically assume bounty hunter, that there is just much more there than meets the eye. It's not just bounty hunter, bounty hunter, bounty hunter.
Yeah, I mean, we still don't know actually what his occupation is. I'm assuming it's going to be bounty hunter, but who knows? Jason will. Before
he already knows.
I think, well, he's a gunslinger, so he gets some adventures.
He's an outlaw, like Star-Lord,
right?
Real outlaw. But you know, for me, I think one of the biggest reasons I love about the picture and about this whole atmosphere that's going around now is there's still a lot of secrecy to this. We don't know who's part of the cast, who's behind the armor in The Mandalorian. You know, we'll speculate the guy looks huge. Whoever it is, I mean, I threw out that I thought it was Josh Brolin. At least that's I'm going to Vegas next week for work, for cybersecurity summit, and I'm like putting my chips down on it being Josh Brolin as just a kid, just because he just seems to fit the bill for stature. But of course, it could be anybody. But Jason, you had so much, and I think I got some bullet points down of the stories that you had this week, because you had 6, I think, total, not counting last week. And I just want to go through, I guess, bullet by bullet. If you wanted to talk a little bit about, just kind of extrapolate, you know, what exactly you saw and maybe give us a little bit more. Let's see here. So here's a breakdown. The first one scoop you had is possibly John Leguizamo. I can never say his name.
Leguizamo.
Leguizamo, as part of the Star Wars streaming show, The Mandalorian. Others who I have asked believed he was involved with Star Wars, but couldn't confirm it was the Mandalorian. So do you want to extrapolate on that a little bit?
Yeah, late last year, it was like in 2017, and that's what makes all of this like a little bit difficult. Was in 2017, I knew like Filoni was down at Favreau's. I wasn't even digging for it. People were telling me. It was like, hey, Filoni's doing this, and so at first it was kind of difficult to glean. Is that is Filoni going down there because he's like helping Favreau get a TV show up and running, or is he involved? And as time went on, it was clear he was involved. And then, but there were other people who were continually going there, and I was told, like I said, wasn't even looking for this stuff at this point, but it kept coming in, and then lo and behold, like later on, now that we're in the era where it's casting and stuff is happening, then I'm hearing names of people that I've never heard of before that I could break it, but it wouldn't really do anything. No one would care or know who it was anyway. And I'm like, the person has anonymity right now. Let's just let them have it. On some of that stuff, but those people, those couple of bigger names continue to come in.
Sure.
And this is back from 2017 until now. And so it makes the odds of those things being legit pretty high, but also from the fact that people who were telling me who the directors were, people who were telling me this, were also naming these people. And like the Pascal rumor is like, yeah, like it's not I don't have access I don't even know how to contact his representation, but I have a friend who did, who works in the entertainment industry, and they said that story is incorrect.
Okay.
So like that one, I don't think that scoop pans out based off of that. At the same time, though, maybe I said something wrong. Maybe I said he was the elite and he's not. I gave them a little bit of room to say the report's incorrect and just do it that way.
Well, you know how it is. If the information is not absolutely 100% accurate, then it's no.
Yeah.
Right? But that's not the whole truth.
And then but the Leguizamo thing was something that I just have heard so many times now. And it's not through like, some guy on Reddit or something like that. It's like it's more avenues where real things come through. And so it was him, Carl Weathers, which I only put on the podcast. I didn't put that on the website, but I did do that on my podcast. Carl Weathers was another one who was coming through, and then another person comes in and says Carl Weathers, and I'm like, but I do remember Filoni doing that Predator episode.
Yeah, that's right. He
did. Clone Wars. And so, I could definitely see. I mean, if it happens, rad. If it doesn't, why isn't it? That's what I say.
When I heard the podcast and you mentioned that, I actually went to go look up Carl Weathers because I'm like, is there another young actor named Carl Weathers that I haven't heard of? And that's like, nope. It's just the Carl Weathers I grew up with in Rocky. That's him. Like, really? I'm like, hey,
Creed.
Everybody gets a second chance, right? But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see like the cast. What's interesting for me also this is we didn't see any casting calls. Now, usually somebody gets a leg up on some casting calls coming out from Lucasfilm for roles and what they're looking for. I mean, outside of what you hear.
I saw there were casting calls.
You did see
them? They were obscured.
Sure.
And they were done under the code names. There's one other code name than the one that's already out there, and they were done under both of those companies.
Yeah, because usually people get pretty wise. I mean, it's not long before somebody gets wind of the casting calls, and it ends up making the trades in some other places. But this one was kind of quiet. I mean, you probably heard about it, from your back end sources, but nothing. And it's crazy that this long. Like, I really wonder if they were doing the casting for the show. When did they do it? In 2018, or did they do it this year? Like when they're ready for production? I mean, at least for the principal.
From what I understand, casting is going on still, and I got a feeling that if that has a lot to do with why there wasn't a big announcement about who's in the show, because I don't know if at this moment in time all the roles have been filled or not, but I'm under the impression that there are still roles that are going to be like filled.
It would make sense. That's the reason why we don't have an announcement. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting to have principal photography starting, for the television, and there's nothing.
I also think that if the plan was, let's get in there and let's like make the show happen before anybody even knows, before anybody even knows to start looking at this and that this is even a thing. And it was when I first went onto that set or was looking at it and all that stuff, I was like, oh man, I'm not gonna really say anything. But then like where it's at, I was just like, this is so gonna get discovered. Like I know I'm looking for this stuff constantly, but it's just gonna get discovered anyways. And like where it was at, like I've been in that area and just seen like random people showing up and doing like essentially looking at it too. Sure. And like that has happened. And there's a train that goes by, and I was being completely guarded about it. And then I'm on Reddit one day and I see somebody posting videos of their train going by, looking at it, and I'm just like, okay, like at that point, like cat's out of the bag, man. You know what I mean? Like this isn't a secret. And like a part of me like admires that they went in there and were like, we're gonna make this like near Los Angeles.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like a train yard in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, this is where you make movie magic. But you look at that shot that they released of the Mandalorian, and it looks fantastic. It's like it's hilarious to me because as soon as you posted the pictures, there are people on Reddit who apparently, I didn't know there's like a group of people who do this. Like they love seeing pictures and figuring out where on earth that is using Google Maps and other things. And as soon as it hit, some of the top comments on Reddit was, I know where that is, and I know where I can find it. And it's just hilarious to me because when you look at the set picture, it looks like some normal scrapyard by some train tracks in the middle of nowhere in some business park. Right? It's just like, wow, this is where you're going to make me, like, who was the location manager to go, hey, this spot right here is magic. Like, get your iPhone. We're going to film this one right here.
Well, well, when all of the stuff isn't there, I mean, it's like about the size of a Little League baseball field.
Yeah.
The whole little place of land. And there are times of day when it has like really good, just natural sunlight too. For what that's worth. I don't know how much they're using that in the filming of this.
I think the sunlight is everything. Because it's obviously not the location, because all the blue screens and props. There's nothing, at least I unless there's nice hills in the background, which I don't think there is, unless you want to go that far and explain like where it is. But, I mean, what's so great about that spot? I mean, honestly.
Well, what I think is great about that spot for them is, like I said, it's a large patch of land that you could do everything you need to film on, and it's close to LA, so Favreau and the whole crew and people there don't have to go to Pinewood or something like that. Leave the country and their families and stuff. And they aren't, from what I could see so far, they don't work on the weekends, so it's like they got Saturday and Sunday off. So it's like a kind of a chill kind of little thing that you got going on.
It's incredibly convenient.
It's but once again, super weird, like to if you wanted secrecy, to do it there, because I mean there's so many places that you could have done this outside, just a few miles out, and that like it never would have been discovered. Sure.
Yeah, I mean there's farms, ranches, you can like rent like stuff, like you could be complete and even buy private property, not really worry about it is kind of gusto for them to do it this way, and it's what makes me laugh so much about the whole thing. It's like somebody could easily go up, and what's amazing too is like the TMZs of the world haven't been, I mean, this is literally in your backyard. And there's not like one guy with like a super telephoto lens from like way back when to get shots. It's like you're the only game in town for this, and it cracks me up.
Maybe I ruined that. I mean, maybe in the weirdest of ways, me going and putting the photos out made it not worth it to the TMZ guy to get his really $10,000 camera lens out there.
Yeah,
and take all the photos, because maybe I devalue that for that. I don't know.
But it's nice that you get the only scoop, though. I mean, it's just this. You figure there'd be an army of people, you know what I mean, taking photos, people showing up, whatever. I mean, eventually someone will figure out where it is. But, that's incredible. All right, so the second thing that caught my eye was a picture you have done, one of the pictures, that there was a modular piece of wall that almost looks completely like black rock. Looks similar to Sullust as seen in Star Wars Battlefront. This one really caught my eye, and it was interesting how, the Sullust thing, I think it popped up for you. I think you were the first one to mention it, and then, of course, people on Reddit, the JC forums, and everyone ran with it like crazy. Let me bring it up here if I can.
And I'm not saying it's Sullust. I'm saying like this is not unlike Sullust for what
similar.
It's worth.
Oh yeah, exactly. If I was looking at the same thing, it's like, of course, if it's going to be Sullust, it would be a lot more than just that. So it is kind of weird that you would have this, and it looks straight out of the game. Like you wouldn't notice any difference. I mean, the contours, everything, and I'm like, wow, that really looks like calcified, like frozen rock, like molten rock, the way it is. But of course, it could be anything. But it was interesting. I love that picture. I mean, this is the great stuff because anything that catches your eye, it makes you want to question things. And this is like one of those topic pieces. Ooh, like, is he really on Sullust? Is this because it doesn't, where that picture that they released in Mandalorian doesn't look like Sullust at all. So, having this on the set piece, I don't know, just it was one of those things that caught my eye.
But one thing that like never occurred to me, and I'm not that good at the galactic map stuff.
Sure.
Is Sullust in the Outer Rim? Because I guess if it's like in the inner rim or whatever, that would pretty much probably make it way more unlikely. And we saw some interesting stuff this week. I wrote a little bit about, but they were bringing in like this like red sand and mixing it with the dark sand and putting it on the ground. But there were also times when they were like making the ground wet, and like I can't for the life of me figure out, is it supposed to have rained like on the volcanic world, which is possible, but it was just very strange. But they were definitely filming on the wet ground. It wasn't like they were like getting it wet for some other reason and then like letting it dry and continuing. It was like they were wetting and filming. So it's pretty weird, right?
It is weird. I mean, normally when they do an atmospheric shot, it's like I remember the original stuff for Crate when you were talking about that, when you originally got that stuff and how it had the sand stuff when we were going through that. This kind of reminds me of those days.
Mars with snow on it.
Mars with snow on it. That was the original description that you had for it. And I'll never forget when you text me that. I'm like, Mars with snow on it. And yeah, I mean, this is like one of those things that just kind of stands out, and it just reminded me a lot of that period of time. Of course, and then there was the other, I think, a recent story that you just did about seeing Imperial Stormtroopers. So I was hearing about Stormtroopers showing up in The Mandalorian. The idea of the story taking place in the aftermath of the Empire makes your imagination push further out and conceive of the troopers as extinct, but it looks more and more like the troopers were pushed to the Outer Rim. As the first press release stated, this story takes place far away from the reaches of the New Republic. These troopers are controlled by the regional governors, or are they just aimless militia taking from the people just because there's no central imperial government to fund their existence? So, and of course I have a picture of that as well. And yeah, I mean, it's just really the troopers, of course, that jives, right? I don't think it's a big surprise for everyone, but it's nice to know that we go back to the original look at the troopers in another Star Wars platform again, right? I mean, how did you guys think when you saw the troopers on the new shot, Gary, when you saw it?
Espionage.
Is that what you think? That's a pretty good guess.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about bounty hunters and outlaws and, shall we say, people hoping to fly under the radar, what better way to perhaps do it than use the disguise of an Imperial officer, where rules and regulations don't exactly follow you around?
Oh, so you think like the protagonist...
Splinter Cell, maybe.
Yeah, could be. Ali, what did you think when you saw the picture of the Stormtroopers?
So, going off of what Gary said, I think that that scene in Solo when Beckett takes the armor from the dead soldier and puts it on himself. That was my first thought. I was like, the Empire is kind of not really a thing now. So are you wearing this? Kind of like how people, obviously not the exact same thing because what I'm saying is real life. You know how sometimes people will buy an army uniform and they'll wear it to restaurants and try and get discounts.
Stolen Valor. Yeah. I love Stolen Valor videos. They're hilarious when they get caught. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
And I think that this is maybe some kind of similar thing, except it's not really about going to a restaurant. It's, I'm trying to get power.
Like
they're I'm here for the Imperial discount.
I'm get power, and that was my first thought. Someone's wearing this uniform trying to look important when they really aren't, and they're just trying to get into some shit.
Oh my god, do people really, like I'm a colonel in the Salvation Army? Like that doesn't work.
Well, like one of the things that like was interesting to me about the Stormtrooper concept was like at first we were hearing about the Stormtroopers at the other location, and I didn't know if they were Mandalorians and they were just being like Stormtroopers like in a generic way. So I was really happy to see actual like Stormtroopers there because it means what I was hearing was more specific than I feared it was. But what's I think cool about it is that if he's a gunfighter, gunslinger kind of dude, right? I mean, wherever he ends up in the story, that character now has the ability to go in there and beat up all the bad guys.
Yeah.
Like in a weird way, like if it is the Empire that's just there and never left, he might kick its ass and push it out. So like in a weird way, we have this like gunfighter who kind of beats the Empire, but because the Empire's in that state, like they're not coming back either, probably. So that like there's some like a lot of potential there for like good sort of like season resolution. And let me ask you guys a question real quick, if it's okay, Max.
Yeah, sure.
Do you guys think this is like a one and done season? Like we get the 8 episodes and we're out, or do you think this is like 8 episodes and of season 1? Is this season 1 or is this a mini series?
This is season 1. Like I think this is all going to be 8 episodes, one whole season, and then maybe next season we get a totally different plot point, different kind of railroad track, same character, just a different track. I think whatever he's going to do here, it's going to be all tight. I mean, I don't think there's going to be there's going to be one major arc and maybe some side arcs, but it's going to be one principal thing. I think if you don't got 8 episodes, you don't got a lot of room to play with. You know what I mean? I think you got to keep it focused. And I think you were right talking about how there's going to be no fluff and just all real content for every episode to make sure it hits home. When I saw the Imperial Troopers, my first reaction was, oh God, like not again. But then again, I got to remember the time, place where we're in. And what I'm really hoping for in this series, and Chuck Wendig started it with the first Aftermath book, was the Empire is really in a bad place right now at this point in time. There is whatever the remnant is, and I don't know how much of a remnant is going to be here. Like, I don't know if this takes place before Chuck's books, which I'm thinking it is, just before that little space between Jedi and when Chuck's books get started.
This takes place like 2 years after Return of the Jedi,
which is very close to Chuck in his timeline.
But isn't Battle of Jakku like exactly 1 year after the Battle of Endor? So that means it's after Jakku probably.
Yeah, it's definitely after Jakku. This does not happen before Jakku. This is definitely after.
Yeah.
But it's that time between the end of Jakku, the Battle of Jakku, and when his Aftermath's books start. Because at least in the beginning of Chuck's books, he talks about the massive infighting that's going on within the remnant of the Empire. We're nowhere near First Order stuff yet. Like, they haven't even gone to the Outer Reachers yet. So what I'm trying to figure out for this series is where exactly does it sit? Does it sit before Chuck's thing, before the Empire is pretty much gone? So if the Battle of Jakku happens, well, actually, no, I'm sorry, Chuck stuff happens before the Battle of Jakku. So yeah, if it happens afterwards, then whatever Imperial remnant is left over, there can't be much, because one of the biggest things that they did was assemble everybody for this last battle, right? And that's the whole charm of Chuck's books, is the fact there's only a small piece that goes to the Outer Reaches. If there's still troopers out there in really odd places, then I don't see these guys sticking to any sort of moff or anything like that. They're almost like a crime syndicate onto their own at that point. If they're just stealing from people and doing their own stuff, I mean, I really don't see any other option. I mean, literally, they know the boss is gone. Like, why am I going to listen to them off? But them turning into basically a crime gang, yeah, I could see that. They just have the armor. And it probably leaves room for them to, like, decorate their armor differently or not wear the armor exactly as Imperial regulations. You know what I mean? Like we classically see them.
Well, in Wendig's books, too, though, it's not like you get, like, specific numbers of, like, 89.9% of the Empire arrived to help at the fight. Like,
true.
And then, like, the Empire is so large when you get into that Outer Rim stuff. I mean, there could be, like, worlds full of the Empire still at that point if they want there to be.
Yeah, and
if Favreau and the storytellers decided to take it into that place. I mean, like, that's always, like, the weird part is these books are canon, but when push comes to shove, live action is going to
take precedent,
make it work, and then they'll come up with some contrived, weird, roundabout, twisty, loop-de-loop to make it make sense.
Yeah,
if they have to,
which always hurts me inside, but I get
same.
over it. And exactly,
Saw Gerrera's eyes, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
I cry for him still.
Those eyes don't match. It's not real. He's fake, man. But it's going to be interesting because I am curious. I don't know. This show is not going to delve that much into the First Order, because one of the biggest things we're all waiting for is, how did the Empire go from the Remnant to the First Order? There's a big gap there that we still have nothing on. And this series, I'm sure, is going to delve somewhat, as tiny as it may be, into that, because there are questions that people want to know, and it's going to gain interest into the series. I don't see that happening probably for the first season, because they have to really establish this guy and his story and everything else. This is probably a season 2 ender, season 3 type deal, way down the road. But I'm really glad this thing has started out great. I think for Celebration, we might get lucky. Maybe get a trailer for it, maybe even an episode. I doubt it, but it'd be nice. I mean, that would be like the biggest welcome surprise if they had an episode for everyone ready to watch, come Celebration, which I doubt, but it would be really nice if they did that. Troopers again. I can't believe it. We're getting troopers. And I really hope like they are some sort of a crime syndicate, because then maybe they can alter their uniform, because in Chuck Wendig's book, whatever the remnant is that's on Jakku before the battle happens, these guys are not wearing the uniform the way they normally did, right? It was pieces. They were dirty. They were just like, they haven't showered in months, like the way Chuck described it. And I'm kind of hoping these guys are the same thing. So we still see the Imperial uniform, but it's not what we expect. And there might be some customization and some really cool rad things that they might do. But if it's straight up, go ahead.
Yeah, well, there's also all of those connections that they've like laid out, even in Solo: A Star Wars Story, where you see Homeboy killing like one of the regional governors.
Yeah,
like the crime to Empire kind of like relationship is pretty established in everything. So I could see kind of a situation where you do have crime, like if you have a planet that was sort of run by criminals.
Sure.
They might let that Empire stay or seem like it's there just because it's a symbol, it's an extension of the same police force they've been using, and that could be why that gunfighter comes in there. And like, what do gunfighters do? They clean up the town. So I got to think that if that's like the end goal of this. But I will say too, is that I've known the premise was about the restoration of Mandalore since like July or June, something like that. Yeah, it's been a while, and then I didn't publish it for quite a while either. And point was I had a very, very good authority. It was about the restoration of Mandalore. And when you look at what the actual like press release was, it's about a gunfighter. And so part of me wonders did I get kind of the end game of the series, like the eventual point of the series, and not what it is at first? Because at first we might just have this cowboy story going as he gets friends and people in the show become people that are part of his posse, if you will. Then eventually they go back to Mandalore. So maybe that's where it's going.
Yeah, it's the hero story, right? This guy's going to be a lonesome guy doing his own thing, and then eventually he gets caught up into the movement, and then he's reluctant, but then he joins it, right? And he starts this huge thing. I mean, I expect that season 2, season 3, like that's obviously what's going to happen with this guy. Because one interesting thing that did happen, and I forget the person in Lucasfilm's name, somebody from Lucasfilm tweeted about a week ago, congratulating Dave Filoni on directing this first episode. And he had talked about how years ago, Dave Filoni had whiteboarded like all the houses of Mandalore and gave everyone this huge speech in the conference room, basically explaining the whole thing, right? And how he saw it, how he did it. And it's like, you wouldn't pick something like Dave Filoni to do this project unless you really needed that sort of expertise in the way it is. And I don't think you do that kind of background homework just for a few episodes of Rebels. You know what I mean? To flesh it all, unless it's a passion project and he decided to do it. So I agree with you that I really think it is going to be a return to Mandalore at some point. Maybe not initially, because he's going to be hesitant to do it. I don't think he's gung-ho like, I'm going to, fight for Mandalore back, but I'm going to be an outlaw first. It doesn't kind of, it's the outlaw who just like Han Solo.
No,
he's yeah.
And that's like my big question in terms of the story is this gunfighter, is he like on the good side and was pushed out of Mandalore when things went bad and he's been out of there since, or was he actually on the bad side and then gets pushed out when the Empire falls? Like there's kind of you could really get at that from like a lot of different angles, and just because your parents are bad or your family was bad doesn't mean you are. I mean, as we're seeing, like they have raised parents being drunks,
Sure.
which is, I think, rad, because that's what most of your parents are. Most of your parents, people watching this, their parents aren't princesses and kings and queens and stuff. They're probably just drunks. So it's way more real, like realistic, relatable.
Gary, what do you think how this season? Do you think this is going to be a return to Mandalore? Do you really think he's going to have that sort of hero's journey, or do you think this is just going to be following Han Solo in Mandalorian armor?
Well, I think if we take the overall impression of Mandalorians, they're not a race who just sit there idly waiting for trouble to find them. Chances are they'll go and seek something out before it comes to them. So I think that's something I was going to ask Jason. How much of Mandalore do you think we will actually see based on the impression that I'm getting, I think this is going to be something that's the physical sets and the scenery is going to be there as much as possible. I'm hoping there's not going to be a huge amount of CGI and green screen. I think this is something that would benefit from very little visual effects. I think solid scenery, action sequences would be of enormous benefit to something like this, a good old-fashioned shoot 'em up. So whether that's actually going to take place on Mandalore remains to be seen. Personally, I would say if it is going to be a 2-3 series event, then the end game, I suppose, would be to return Mandalore to its former glory, or perhaps take Mandalore in a new direction. But whether that's what they will actually do, that remains to be seen. I personally wouldn't like to make a call. I would love this to be just a complete blank canvas, and for us all to be just perplexed about what they're actually going to do.
Ali, what do you think? I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
No, Ali, take it. No problem.
Oh, I'm just really excited about getting to see Mandalore and what's going on. I'm hoping that, since obviously there's a gunslinger, I'm bounty hunter, I don't know. I'm hoping there's some mafia stuff going on, because I like anything like that. So, in the back of my mind too, I'm thinking maybe these troopers were actually troopers, but now they're working for the mafia, like that kind of thing. So I just like to watch people hurt other people in fictional circumstances.
See, she has such a great outlook for this whole thing.
No, it's like in the stuff that we've seen on that set so far, it's like, it's real. But back when I was first hearing about the show, I was hearing that there was going to be like a ton of like pre-rendered effects and stuff like that. So when they were shooting, like, they know exactly what they're seeing. Like the CGI and stuff like that would be added later on. For instance, if that is Tatooine, back to that old thing, is it Tatooine again,
know,
or is it Jakku, or is it whatever? That if they were going to be able to like see that stuff as it happened. But the other thing about it is that, like, looking at, like, if you watch the Clone Wars arcs again and you see Mandalore during the Clone Wars era, or that kind of stuff, it's that's not a place you could ever like make. They would never make that. It would be completely CGI today. It would just be like, it's like glass and
steel.
I don't know,
glass, steel,
glass,
it's almost like
steel,
Coruscant.
and it's like in a way, a part of me thinks that part of me wonders if we're seeing this location stuff to kind of offset that, because when we do get there, if we do get there in the season, it's going to be a completely like green screen made up environment. And the stuff that if they're doing at the other location not far from where the practical sets I'm seeing are, I got a feeling that there's a ton more like green screen kind of stuff going on there than what we're seeing here.
Yeah, and this week I think there was also another outlet story that I didn't pick up for the site was Epic, I think, is working in conjunction with the production to help them with the CG and all the new technologies that they're going to use to try to make this turnaround for production faster, because it is a live action show, which is great. It pushes the technology. It is interesting that if this ends up being Tatooine for that little place by the train yards, I'm gonna crack up, because that is just hysterical. But
I think it is.
Like, I want to just clap my hands, because, well, the thing is, I think it's a good, if you had to bring new people in, not Star Wars fans that watch this show, we're talking about regular folks. If you introduce them to Tatooine early, they know that. They know Tatooine, and it's just they know, oh, this is an outlawish type place, like they can't see. They know that, and I think it's familiar for regular new people who they're hoping to bring to the show. I would really be surprised if it's just some new place, because most fans will be like, Outer Reaches, I get it, but it looks like Tatooine. And I think for regular folks to be like, wow, so we had Jakku, we had Jeddah, and now we have this other outreach stuff that they all look like deserts, they all look the same. I don't know. I mean, is that where you're putting your imaginary chip on, Jason, that this is going to be Tatooine?
I am. I'm putting it on it being Tatooine, and I got no source on this. It's just a theory. But,
sure.
If the stuff that I've had, like, in the last couple of months, like, pan out or whatever, and some of the things I never reported have panned out as well from these different avenues. That Mos Eisley movie I talked about, that was real. Yeah. There's going to be a movie that took place in Mos Eisley, and that's not happening soon. If it's ever going to happen, it's not on the horizon, I don't think.
It's on a shelf.
Famous
somewhere.
famous last words. But where I'm going with that is that the amount of work that they went into researching, making Tatooine and recreating Mos Eisley and stuff like that. I mean, I'm kind of wondering if any of that has been given over to the show now, and it's sort of like a bigger kind of like design kind of space, you know?
Tatooine is on the outer reaches. I mean, you can say it's on the outer
reaches. Rim, yeah.
It is the outer rim. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I buy it. Honestly, I would be happy if they went back to Tatooine. Going back to Tatooine after the fall of the Empire would be an interesting place. The Empire didn't have much reach there. Yeah, no, exactly. But no Jabba gone too. And the interesting part about that whole thing, of course, is, and we know about, again, Wendig's book. And honestly, when I first heard about The Mandalorian, I really was hoping that it was going to be Cobb Vanth. But of course, it never works out because whatever I want in the books never turns out to be true and in real life into Star Wars. But it was an interesting prospect.
It should be, though. It should be. Like, why wouldn't it be that guy? Why was it Rack Snook? I don't know, but that one especially.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Like, if he's in Tatooine, well, that's where Cobb Vanth is. And this is right around the exact same time. So, and he ran into Cobb Vanth with the Boba Fett armor, and he's the lawman, and this guy is the bad gunslinger kind of guy. Like, but they're both wearing Mando armor. Like, that could be, that could kind of get confusing. They just hug. I just want to see Malakili, because Malakili's palling around with Cobb Vanth, and to me, I'm sorry, I still want my, was it Josh Hamm, the actor? I still want my Josh Hamm as Cobb Vanth and Josh Gad as Malakili.
Wait, you mean John Hamm?
Yeah, John Hamm and John Hamm and Josh Gad.
Right.
Josh Gad playing Malakili. Like, that to me is my ultimate like odd couple Star Wars film that I want. So I mean, this is really fantastic. This production is going to be, of course, we're all waiting for the shows to come out next October, which with the live streaming servers, more than likely it's going to premiere then. Okay, guys, so I think we're pretty much done with the pictures. Right, I think we got to see a bunch of stuff, and I guess the last thing, a topic we're going to talk about, just generally over the top, is, of course, Star Wars Resistance debuted on the Disney Channel this past Sunday. 3 episodes of the new animation series from Lucasfilm was available on the Disney Now and Go apps. So many fans from the holiday weekend getting a long peek into the new series. The first 3 episodes, The Recruit, Triple Dark, and Fuel for the Fire, debuted to a warm welcome to at least on Star Wars Twitter it did. So I guess first question for the panel is, how'd you guys like it? Just real top overview and what you thought of the series. Ladies first. Ali, you can go.
Oh, okay. Can I make one comment about that Mos Eisley movie first?
Go for it.
Okay. So when I have for eons wanted a Mos Eisley Cantina movie, like long before I heard about this. It's like, okay, there needs to be a Mos Eisley Cantina movie, but make it like Coyote Ugly. So like Mos Eisley Cantina Girls. And I've always, like, if you're wanting to go into comedy Star Wars, here's your chance. Now, I know Coyote Ugly is not a comedy, but,
a family show.
Yeah,
go for
blend
it. You could be a little risky.
But Resistance. I have been very vocal about the fact that I do not like the animation style.
Okay.
I really like, I like computer animation, but 90s kid, I'm super into hand-drawn. I know that's not really a thing anymore, but there's something about the fluidity of how the characters move that really bothers me. It bothered me in Rebels, bothers me in Clone Wars. It's just, I'm not into it. But the story, I watched and listened as I was cooking the other day, and I was like, this is a good story. This is a good story. You can tell they had Oscar Isaac come in and, just say a few things, record them so that they could use them in the show. But other than that, I was impressed by the story. It's obviously for children, but at the same time, that's who Star Wars is really for.
Sure.
It's not. Sure. We're just children in adult bodies, This show's really for kids, and I think that a lot of people have a hard time, since they've loved Star Wars since they were children. They're like, why is this not for me? Not everything is for us. But
I think when the show debuted, it was very similar to what happened like with Freemakers. Once people saw it wasn't for them, like, they'll just shut up. They'll just let it go. I don't think we're going to see as much pushback now that the show's aired and it's done its thing. I don't think we're going to get much pushback from that, because I think they clearly defined the demographic for this show, which is what they didn't do for Rebels. And I think that's what kind of hurt Rebels. At least now, if you come out front saying this is for children, you can like it if you want, but you don't have to. What did you think, Gary, of the show? Oh, actually, you didn't pick it up this week because you guys don't have it in Ireland yet, do you?
Well, no, we don't get it till Saturday, but by other means, we have gotten to see the first 3 episodes.
So have you seen the first 3 episodes yet or no?
Yeah, I've seen the first 3 episodes,
Oh,
yeah.
fantastic. By other means. So what did you think?
Yeah. It's quite different to what I thought it was going to be. I thought with the storyline, you know, this young supposed hotshot pilot being recruited as a rebel spy, I was expecting the tonality of it to be a lot darker than it seems to be. I wasn't expecting him to be this immature klutz who, if he lived in Ireland, he would have been thrown overboard a long, long time ago. But
prison rules out there.
Prison, yeah. And I think another thing that threw me was the minute you hear anime, automatically you would jump to something like let's say a Voltron or something of that style. But with it being only anime inspired, it's extremely colourful. It's, I think, targeting a new audience. It is targeting a much younger demographic with the outreach to anime fans, which it seems to have gone down quite well online. In terms of the design aesthetics of it, the ships look incredible.
Yeah, they look like a lot of fun.
The new vehicles look unbelievable. I mean, I had a look at the Keldor character, Bo Keevil.
Sure.
That his new ship, whatever way the wings and struts are set up, it can take on any shape or form he chooses. So I think once we get to see the actual Aces, it will become a lot more interesting. I mean, there's a great voiceover cast there. I mean, Stephen Stanton playing a converted Imperial. That's going to be exciting. The only thing I don't like is Kaz. That's the one.
Oh, why is it always the protagonist? Everybody had a problem with Ezra, now everyone's got a problem with Kaz.
But the one thing I think with him though is in this environment, he's somebody who is going to have to grow up quite quickly. And I think the star of the show for me so far seems to be Jaeger. There seems to be so much more to that character than meets the eye, and he comes across as being somebody who's either going to guide Kaz along, or he's just going to kick him when he's down, and that sets up multiple scenarios for the directions the show can go in, which at the end of the day, I suppose, is the most exciting thing about it.
Jason, what you think?
So, what I think? Okay, so in 2013 when Rebels premiered?
Yeah, no,
2013 or 2014?
2014.
Whatever. I went to the Comic-Con that year, and I waited in line for like 8 hours because Lucasfilm, they don't do hookups. You gotta kiss that booty if you want to get into those things. I tried. I said, "Hey, can somebody help me?" Nobody could help me. So I waited in line 8 hours. I actually met Still Saunders there for the first time, and we were like competitors. I'm like, "Oh, you're not getting in. I'm getting in. I'll kill you." Anyways, and then the next year we became buddies. But
how quaint.
I saw that, and after watching like 100 episodes or whatever it was of Clone Wars, the opening of Rebels, I loved it. I loved how when Rebels started, like how the tone was, what the promise of the show was. Loved it. And then the problem for me with Rebels was each week when Ezra apparently has some kind of like learning disability and has to learn basic stuff every single week that he learned last week again. Yeah. Like it drove me up the wall. It's like, you're an idiot. You shouldn't even be in a college, let alone like a rebel force. And so on this show, when I was watching it, like I watched all 3 and I loved it. I don't like that thing like Kaz. I'm a klutz. I'm just like you guys in the 7th grade, getting puberty and being awkward. Like it's like, no, okay, but it's okay. It's okay for now. For right now, it's fine.
Sure.
And who's the green guy? His name, the green.
Niku, yeah.
That dude. Loved a lot about the idea of that guy. Somebody compared him to Drax if he was a nerd.
That was Pete. And I got into it. Pete? Yeah, and I got into it with Pete. I told Pete to shove his hate in it.
No. And I like it. I like it conceptually, but the thing is there was a moment where he keeps talking about how he believes in Kaz, and he has absolutely no reason other than the fact that he's insane. And in a sad way, he's psychotic. both liked and hated it. I was like, I hate this. This is so dumb. On the other hand, I'm like, this is so nuts that this character could be the start of something really good. But after Rebels, I'm a little bit afraid that that's going to be the thing that happens every episode. And if it does, I will definitely just binge watch the show. Like when there's a few out, I'll watch 5 or 6 episodes and then do another batch, because I don't know if I could take that week to week, like as an adult. Now, in terms of like animation and stuff like that, having 2 little kids,
yeah,
I consume a ton of animation. You know, it happens, and I see a lot worse every day. I see a lot. The shows I do like watching with my kids, like Voltron.
Sure,
I think it's on par. I think it's like,
It's
especially
there.
for one of the first episodes.
It's there.
It's definitely like you know, something that I have a lot of like faith in. But Star Wars Rebels, for instance, got a little bit better. That show is so ugly. And when it started, there was like one like extra. It was the Hat Lady, who became like an important character, like 5, because they're like, we got to use that model, man. We can't. No, I think that's like $10,000. That's like a little car for going to college, you guys. We're using that a lot. And but in this show, I hope I'm not being tricked in the first episodes. But in the first episode, like I was able to, like when I did get bored, my eyes would dart towards the background.
There's a lot of density there.
See, creatures and aliens walking by. And like that's the kind of stuff that like inspires your imagination. And Rebels didn't do that. It was so stale and very just drab and ugly. And I get that they were going for this aesthetic design that was like, yeah, you know, like under imperialism, things get, you know, very industrial revolution kind of style, like dirty. Fine, cool, get it. But it didn't really ever capture the Star Wars
have the
look,
grit,
feel, or depth.
And we talked about that in prior episodes of this show, that it was one of the things that with this new animation style, that I think there's a lot of money savings and turnaround and processing, right? Time is money. And if you can save money in production and put it toward more density for more art objects in the scene, like that's what Pete talked about extensively, that it's a better formula. I think it works. So for me, the art style isn't super my thing. I enjoy it. I like it. But if I can trade a little bit of that off to get a lot more density, I mean, the marketplace, when Kaz goes to the marketplace to pick up that fish or whatever that thing is called, I forget what it's called. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I did pause it then, just happened to go to the kitchen, but I'm like staring at the screen because there's a lot to look at in that scene. I mean, within the marketplace when he's going through the long angle shots, there's a lot of things going on. One of the biggest things I love about the show, because Jason and I, we both have toddlers. Or now they're starting to be kids. It's starting to get up there. But Gabby loves
little disgusting people. No, just kidding.
But Gabs, Gabs likes the show. Evan likes it too. Evan's still having a hard time like just zoning in yet, but Gabby's really enjoying it. So it's like for me, and of course, this is the great thing about Star Wars. It's not everything for everybody. But for dads with their kids, it's a great show that I can watch with them that they'll enjoy. And I like how the show does have a moral setting, like for every single episode. It's kind of like the A-Team of morals, right? It's like the A-Team show. They do one quick thing, and here's the moral thing, send them off, right? This is the whole bit. But I agree with you that if there isn't growth of these characters, if there isn't change in their personalities, episode after episode, if this Kaz guy just constantly keeps making mistakes and is a klutz, sort of like Ezra was, then he's not going to be appealing to people. So it's just like, this show, again, is interesting. Because one of the things that stood out for me this past week in covering the show and watching the Moss is the new time slot. Because the next episodes will premiere at 10 o'clock on Sunday. Which kind of falls in line with what Magnus had said on the show. And some others, that Disney probably figured out the formula that most kids just stream their shows. And so they can stream the shows for kids. And they'll still have a primetime slot for adults to watch it, where they can have more ad space for adults. That's something that makes sense to me. Because why keep this show at Sunday night at 10 o'clock? Like, that doesn't jive with me. I don't understand that at all. I don't. Except if that formula is in play. That, kids. But why isn't this cartoon on a Saturday morning on Disney?
Yeah, my theory was just that maybe it's more for that streaming service when it hits too. Because I know that there's like other Star Wars properties that aren't announced that are going to be hitting that too.
Sure.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if, in some ways, like getting it out there now is just starting it early because they want to get it moving. But you know, the whole thing though is that like that Kaz guy, like I don't hate him like right now.
You
I
will.
don't. I know, and that's what I'm afraid of. Like remember, and I'm not trying to like I liked a lot of stuff in Rebels. There was a lot of stuff in Rebels I did like, but remember that moment when when Ezra's flying with the Mandalorians? It's like the last season, and he's like, "Whoa, guys, I'm an idiot. I can't fly in this rocket pack." I'm like, every time I see that part, you know, because I'll put it on for the kids sometimes. Like sometimes my kids will just watch random Star Wars cartoons, and I see that episode, and I'm just like, dude, like. He should have had a hard time keeping up with the real Mandos. Sure. Fine, I get that, but it was just like it was stupid. And like my kids like to laugh and play and just be silly kids. When they see that, they're not slapping their knee like, "Oh my God, you guys did it again!" Like, are you the Eddie Murphy of cartoons?
Yeah, I know.
Because is this raw? Because it's just not happening like that. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
But the good thing about Kaz in these first 3 episodes, even though it is a little bit of yuckity yuck. He's hilarious. I think some parts are really funny. Like when he's paying attention to the races and his cargo gear or the stuff, the engine he's supposed to be working on, his own engine, just goes right off the side. That cracked me. I thought that was pretty funny. There's some genuine funny moments in the show, which had Gabby, you know, slapping her knee, cracking up. Because kids, of course, at that age, they're not hard to really make laugh that much. But it does bring the point of here's the last season of Rebels, and here's Ezra. Woo! When honestly, when you're a teenager in war, kind of grow up quickly. You kind of don't keep that whole whoa kind of attitude, you know, after 4 years of war.
Yeah, I mean, everybody here like was always into Star Wars, right? Like it's kind of always been a thing, like for you guys, I assume.
Yes.
And like there was never a point when I was like, you know, like 3 years old, 4 years old watching Star Wars where I was like, this needs to be more like slapsticky.
I know.
I completely watched the original trilogy and it was just into it for like what it was and watched it every day.
And there's just enough
granted,
of it.
I'm a weirdo. I get that, but to an extent, like I think they shouldn't talk down to the kids. They shouldn't. The kids assume that the kids need everything to be like Zach and Cody because they don't.
No, they don't. Kids can take some more comedy. In fact, they'll even appreciate it if you give it to them. I mean, as I'm knowing that with the kids, Gabby's 6 now, she can pick up on some of the complex comedy, so she gets it, right? She's not exactly lost to it. One of the big things I like, of course, the characters were really great. I mean, the design concept up for them. Neku was really funny. Niku, I think, is hilarious. It is kind of odd that he's so in this guy's Kaz's camp. He just met the guy, right? And he's totally in his camp like he's some messiah or something. But he's a funny character. I think Neku steals the show. Niku really steals the show. I think everyone gravitates on Star Wars Twitter. I mean, if he did a poll, I'm sure he would be lying on top. Jaeger's kind of good too. Yeah, Jaeger's good too. Jaeger's got a nice, solid background. He's more Rebels-ish. If there was anybody like kind of serious tone, like here it is. I thought Oscar Isaac did a great job. You could tell he wasn't. The animation mix kind of seemed a little bit off with the voices, the way he was talking and how Kaz would come. Like I think you can tell they probably recorded separately because you could tell like the tempo just wasn't there between the two. But it was great.
It seems like they all recorded separately on this one. I don't know for certain, but everything I've seen from it, it seems like there's a lot of individual recording on like the past.
Yeah, because if you go to Rebels, those guys all got together, most of them, and you know they sat and worked together, and you could tell that the tempo beats for them talking were on point. This looked very stop and go, almost like gating, right? Like you would hear stop go, and it just seemed a little bit unnatural. But it's the first couple episodes. It's okay. It's a new crew doing this whole stuff. So, I am not holding their feet to the fire. And even Rebels, the first season of Rebels was fantastic. And maybe this first season will be great too. I'll judge it. The thing is, I love a series like this because it's like the Freemaker Adventures. I don't have to really critique this thing to death. It is what it is. If I like it, I'll watch it. If it's not, it's not. And it's a perfect thing for kids. If I was a kid, I would like the show. Right? It is very Voltron-ish, and I like Voltron. So it works. Right?
Can I just chime in, Max, on something you said there? You said with respect to the characters over time that, they have to improve week in, week out. I think there's been a lot of topic of debate, certainly over here with it, regards trials and things like that, with there being the overlap with TFA, with Oscar Isaac showing up as Poe, and obviously we've seen the scene with Leia.
Sure.
I think it would be a huge mistake to throw in a lot of Easter eggs and maybe answer questions from TFA that don't need to be answered. This series is in an incredibly unique position. It really and truly is uncharted territory for this franchise. I just hope that they don't throw in things that aren't needed, bringing in Leia, TFA, more First Order stuff. Let this series create its own unique identity, let it stand on its own 2 feet, and let this crew and the cast of characters develop, and then maybe down the line bring in some more TFA stuff if there is going to be a high level of overlap. You know, I hope that it doesn't get oversaturated.
Go ahead, Gary.
I think there actually will be, because there was a point when early on when I knew that the production shut down on that for a time because of the episode 9 stuff. I just think that's telling. Why would they care what was happening in episode 9? Mm-hmm. So I think that we're gonna move through that timeline.
Yeah, I think we might get something. I don't think it's. I mean, it's going for if past is the future outlook, they put very little. And this is I mean, I did a huge editorial on this like about a month ago. It's like we've got introduced to this new era of Star Wars, and we've done everything but run away from it, except for Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. No other platform, whether it be the books, whether it be the comics, whether it be anything else, whether even TV series, has barely touched anything in the era that they just introduced us in. Like they brought Rey, they've hooked me in to post Empire, and now I got an animation series. It's for kids, and it's now in this era. Now, is this a platform that they're going to start answering Easter eggs in? Right? Is it the right one to do it in? There's a lot of Star Wars fans who are not going to watch the series. It's just not going to be them. And if they hear that there's Easter eggs in them, they're going to kind of get ticked off, because now they feel like they're going to have to watch it or they're missing out on something. You know what I mean?
But who cares about those people? Because they're not consuming it anyway.
Sure.
Like from the Lucasfilm Disney perspective.
Okay.
If you're not going to watch our shows, I'm going to say this: if you're not going to watch the shows, you're probably not a huge consumer of Star Wars
that's
stuff.
A fair
so
point.
they really don't need to care, I think.
That's fair.
And then I also think that but then you have that other side of people who just read books, or just read the books, and then they might dabble in the stuff, but not too much. But I think that the kind of the connectivity there more urges you to watch it than not.
Yeah.
At least eventually.
Well, I have trust. Yeah, I have trust in their storytelling, even though it looks more for kids and it is kind of that area. I have faith that they know how to do this right. So if there is Easter eggs, which I'm hoping there is, because then I'll learn something. Right, watching it with Gabs and Evan and enjoying myself, I'll learn something too, which we can talk about and make these all connections. And these guys love putting in Easter egg connections in everything. It's what they do. It's just a matter of the intensity of it. How much are we really going to get? Allie, how much do you really think they're going to talk a lot about the future in this series, or are we just going to get maybe a few Easter eggs and that's it?
The Easter eggs, I think, would be great. Because, again, as someone who's not really into the animation, I don't know how often I'm going to tune into this. The season was on sale on Amazon for like $3.
$3.99.
Yeah, go ahead and just buy the season. So I bought it. So I will watch it.
Is it still on sale?
I have no idea.
I think so. I think you can go to Amazon. I think it's still for $3.99. And we all thought it was a mistake. And it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bought the season. But I'm one of those people, I read a lot of the books. Mm-hmm. And I like when there's connections to, the movies within the books. And then I see something, just a slight connection in the movies to something that's happened in the book. None of that really has happened big time yet. But, I was one of those people when Rey and Poe introduced themselves to each other at the end of The Last Jedi. I was like, they already did that in the Force Awakens book, that kind of thing. But I think if they do the Easter eggs and they do a little bit more connectivity in this TV show and Resistance, I think you're going to get a lot more people watching.
Well,
$40.
I mean, yeah. Is it $40?
$40?
It was $3.99.
By season 1 in HD for $39.99. By episode 1 for $2.99.
So it must have been a mistake. So Amazon screwed up.
So good. You did good.
Yeah, let's go. Well, if you get it for $3.99. So actually, Allie, you're a perfect use case. So if you don't think you're going to be watching this series very often, and you find out that there's going to be good tie-ins and Easter eggs, and you start catching on Star Wars Twitter, is that going to force you to? Or do you think then you're going to feel like I have to watch the show?
Yes.
Okay, so then maybe the formula works. I mean, here's a use case one. Gary, what do you think? Do you think they're going to delve deep on some of the Easter eggs, or I know you want to be a standalone.
That's what I'm saying. Generally, I hope they don't. I hope they will. There will obviously be Easter eggs. There is no doubt about that, and they will touch on it somewhat. But I think in terms of there's maybe with the crossover with TFA, just so many questions that they could maybe answer or at least reference to. I hope they don't, and they just allow the series to run its own course and stand on its own 2 feet.
I give it 10 episodes before we have Han Solo.
You think so?
Yeah, it's to be like Han and Chewie on that thing, and King Trina, whatever his name is one Raftars, and they're gonna get intertwined. And they've already set up that Han Solo was in racing, and he's been helping these young pilots and who become resistance pilots later on. It's like
so
I think so.
Here's a question.
This is just a guess.
And this is a dumb question. But the Colossus moves, right? Are they planning on going to different planets to do different races, or is this all going to be centered exactly here and they're not going anywhere? Does anybody know that? I think it moves. So, yeah, so if it's going to be going to planet, because I would think if it's a race circuit, they would take it to different places, like Grand Prix, right? Yeah. You would go to different areas and see different things. So we're not going to be stuck like there, because I think one of the things that can probably add to the show, at least to give it a little bit more color and just diversity, is, because where they're at right now, the color palette is very bright. Bright blues, beautiful ocean, greens, right? So it looks very kid-friendly and this what else. But if they go to a planet or a space or something else that isn't those colors, that is very different, reds, sunsets, that sort of thing, it could give a different tone for the show, right? Where it isn't so... Like, I love the interior shots when they're in the canteen and the bar fight comes out, right? When he starts the bar fight and you get that great sun coming through the window only. So there's like a one point of light coming into the room, and it's very sharp. It's not like nice and graded out for everybody. I actually enjoyed that. I thought that was a pretty cool way of doing that scene. But no, it would be interesting. I wonder if the color palette will change the tonality, or at least it'll feel like it's a different tonal shift, because everything is just so bright and blue for me. I mean, how did you guys like the color palette? Did it seem that way for you too? Oh, yes, everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
The only change-up was the pirates attack, wasn't it?
Yeah.
At night?
At night, which was, I think, the only real change. That, of course, some inshore shots. Okay, guys, so also was also released that I caught this week was the other additional, at least the titles for the upcoming episodes for Resistance. Of course, Fuel for the Fire was the last one. The next one is going to be The High Tower, and then on, let's see, that's supposed to be October 22nd. So on October 22nd will be The High Tower.
Is that a Police Academy reference?
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. The first thing I thought was High Tower. So The High Tower is going to debut on October 22nd. The Runaways on November 4th. The Children from Tahar, which surely sounds like the Children of the Corn, but The Children from Tahar is on November 10th. And Signal from Sector 6 on November 11th. And Sayonara Score on November 24th. So it was interesting. We got 3 first episodes right off the bat in Disney Go, which was nice. It was a Saturday. So a lot of people on Star Wars Twitter hit that thing like during the day, during the afternoon. I got to see it in early afternoon, so the kids didn't have to wait for the debut. I don't know now if we're just going to get episode by episode and we're not going to jump ahead by any numbers, which I doubt they're going to do. But it was actually nice to do 3 episodes. It really gives you a good solid taste of what the series is going to be instead of just giving us the part 1 and part 2 for the premiere. I thought that was a really smart move. I don't know if it was intentional, like on purpose, but I thought it was a really smart move. And with that, guys, I think that pretty much wraps it for tonight. You know, I think we had a good talk. Jason, thank you again, because especially you two, Ali and Gary, all 3 of you guys were short notice today. We miss Pete. Pete's out listening to the Empire Strikes Back concert tonight, and Liz just had problems with Skype, everybody, so she was trying to get on. We'll definitely get her. And next week I'll be in Vegas, so we won't be having a show. So with that, guys, thank you again. Of course, Jason, everybody can find you at MakingStarWars.net. Everyone knows how to find you. Ali, where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Glitter Geek TV, and you can follow me on Twitter at GlitterGeekAli, and that's GlitterGeek ALI, not ALLIE, like my parents should have spelled it.
And Gary, how can people find you?
I can be found on all across social media at plo_cool. That's cool with a K. And you can also find us at blabberthehut.com and on social media.
Very cool. All right, guys. Just a reminder to everyone to please don't forget to subscribe and rate us on iTunes, and of course subscribe and us on YouTube. It was a great time, guys. Again, thank you again. It was a great discussion. I can't wait to have you guys back again. And with that, have a great night, everybody.
Max just hung up. He's just like gone. Never gonna see him again.
I had to get up and take the day intact. I felt